edition of the Economy and Politics Show this Thursday, 3rd of September 2020. Today we'll take a look at states, revenue, and sustainability. What are the issues in the subnational level, which is of course a very important segment or level of government, close to the grassroots level. First, let's give you a lineup of what we'll be discussing. Some economic developments that have occurred in the beginning of this month will be of interest. First, the petroleum motor spirit price increase, the electricity tariff increase, and of course, perspectives from the Revenue, Mobilization, and Fiscal Commission on state revenue, and some analysis from the Federal Account Allocation Committee, and a perspective on the internally generated revenue for 2019 and what we may be expecting this year. Also, we'll give you some insight into what states can really do in this period to navigate post-pandemic and improve their revenue. But let's begin with the broader economy because that is also our key interest. The Petroleum Products Marketing Company increased the ex-depot price of petrol from 138 naira 62 kobo to 151 naira 56 kobo per litre. The ex-depot price is the cost at which the product is sold to marketers. The Petroleum Price Marketing Company, the PPMC, which is a subsidiary of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, announced the new price in the memo to industry stakeholders. According to the memo, please be informed that a new product price adjustment has been effected on our payments platform, it said. To this end, the price of premium motor spirit, PMS, is now 151 naira 56 kobo per litre. This is effective from yesterday, 2nd September 2020. In June, the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, the PPRA, removed the cap on the pricing template for petrol. The price of the product is now governed by market forces, which is in essence a deregulation of the downstream sector, which has been in discussion for a long period and once again brings to the fore the pace at which the government is driving a pro-market reform in the country. It has already received some reactions across the nation. Several groups, trade groups, are concerned about this new step. And of course, across the country yesterday, even till this morning, the social media has been awash with various views and perspectives around this increase, dating back to the big 2012 protests in the country against the subsidy price increase. What are the implications of this in the wider range? The premium motor spirit increase will definitely have impact on transportation costs. So we'll be watching that trend, particularly from the report from the National Bureau of Statistics and our own internal analysis. That will definitely have an impact in intra and interstate transportation. That will be one level and will definitely come at a time that the country is going through a socio-economic challenge. So that is the first level of information that has been a discussion point across the country. This particular story is called from the platform of Cable News Platform and was published on brochure. All credits are to Cable. Also, as we continue to see in the pace at which the government is carrying out its market reforms, in a surprise move, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission approved an increase in electricity tariff with effect from Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. That was during this week. This comes 3 months after the tariff hike implementation slated for July 1st was halted by the National Assembly. It prevailed on the distribution companies to shelve the date to the first quarter of 2021 due to the current economic challenges in Nigeria. But documents from the regulator, that's the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, seen, and this story is credited to Punch newspapers on Tuesday, showed that the electricity customers, except those receiving less than 12 hours of supply, would have to pay more for electricity starting from September 1st, 2020. According to the document, the new tariff is based on hours of electricity supply available to the customers. Customers are categorized into the maximum demand and the non-maximum demand customers, as against the previous categories of residential, commercial, and industrial customers with different bands from A to E, depending on the level of supply. So for example, the KJ Electric Distribution Company, a residential customer on that covered on that provision, single phase receiving a minimum of 12 hours of supply will now pay 42 naira 73 kobo per kilowatt, up from 21 naira 30 kobo per kilowatt. For a co-electricity distribution company, still in Lagos, a residential customer on single phase receiving a minimum of 12 hours of supply will now pay 43 naira 1 kobo per kilowatt, up from 24 naira per kilowatt. So that's just a price range, a kind of analysis of what customers will be paying, showing that there has been a review for those that are receiving at least 12 hours of electricity supply. So the market has again been categorized. Just part of driving the market-based reforms that this government initially had been slow on. And this is not just in Nigeria. We've seen countries like Brazil, India trying to adopt market-based reforms and how it has impacted the nation and citizens. In a recent interview I had with Mr. Bismarck Rewani, CEO of Financial Derivatives, he said, now is the time to take drastic reforms. It will be painful, but it is better we take that pain now and adjust to see how these reforms will begin to transform the economy. The challenge is that in this period, it is really challenging for Nigerians. Don't forget that the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, alongside the global crude oil price volatility, has disrupted economic activities and affected even the purchasing power parity of Nigerians. The ability to consume, the ability to purchase has been affected. Currently, we're also having huge indices in terms of a high poverty rate, over 40%, while 82.9 million Nigerians are classified as poor. We also have companies that are really, this period, struggling and managing to survive. So they had to take options like pay cuts or even right sizing in terms of their operations. Still in this period, we are also witnessing an unprecedented surge in unemployment. It was 23.1% as at third quarter 2018. Currently now it's 27.1% as of second quarter 2020, showing you how challenging the socio-economic phase is. Also in this period, we are witnessing very weak growth and prospect of a recession. We're also experiencing a high level of inflation. Inflation is on the rise at 12.82%. So with all this coupled together, the country, the citizens are facing huge economic pressures, and it's a time, once again, for the government to ensure that there's a cushioning effect. We expect that some interventions, some measures also should be brought to the fore to alleviate what will be a challenging phase for the citizens. Particularly with this PMS review, it is going to have a huge impact on prices, particularly foodstuffs and commodities, and transportation. So imagine people that are earning, for say, 40,000 naira a month. Transportation alone may go up over 70% of their salary. So how are they going to navigate this period? That's for those who may not have the office infrastructure to work from home. And so these are part of those measures that we hope we can have a balance, a middle ground of engagement. We also will be monitoring the reactions of trade groups and labor unions. We know that over the years in Nigeria, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress joined together have always reacted to increases in economic situations like this. So we expect to hear what they will have to say on this. But this is a major macroeconomic development that is occurring in the country of huge interest, and we hope that we'll find some level ground on this. Market reforms are not bad, but of course, the timing and the pace of it can really have adverse effects on the citizens. Let's go on to the states and the revenue as we continue our conversation on the subnationals. And first today we'll look at what the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation and Fiscal Commission, what we call the RMAFC or RMAF, has been doing, or their concerns around the states and the ability to generate more revenue. The RMAFC is a very critical commission that has commissioners across all the states of the Federation, and they're all involved in looking at how revenue is distributed and strategies for particularly the Federal Allocation and Accounts Committee. So according to a local print media source, the chairman of the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission called on subnationals, that states and including local governments, to improve internally generated revenue, as the Federation account is really stretched at the moment. This comes as a slowdown in economic activities as well as downturn in oil prices amidst lower crude output has significantly reduced the nation's non-oil and oil revenue collections. As a result, it has become imperative for government at all levels to devise creative ways of managing the current fiscal challenges. Over the years, state governments have been heavily reliant on FAAC distribution to meet recurrent expenditure. This has often resulted in the inability of subnational governments to pay civil workers' salaries during the periods of macroeconomic downturn, occasioned by downturn in oil prices, which reduces FAAC allocations. According to 2019 internally generated revenue at state level report published by the National Bureau of Statistics, FAAC allocations made up 65% of state government's total revenue, while internally generated revenue represented just 35%. Of the 36 states and the FCT, only 3 states, that's the Federal Capital Territory, Ogun and Lagos, had above 50% of their revenue from internally generated revenue sources. From the RMAFC, the view several measures should be employed by states to improve internally generated revenue, and here are some of those options. First, states government tax authorities need to expand their tax nets to capture more qualified taxpayers. So expansion of the tax net is one option that they must take seriously. This, rather than introduce new taxes, can help drive tax revenue collection without hurting growth of businesses within the state. In addition, they believe the federal government needs to relax its control on some state-owned resources. I think RMAFC is also buying into the quest for fiscal restructuring in order to enable states better exploit such resources to boost IGR. And for example, Niger Delta should be allowed to control more of their oil and gas resources. The North should also be allowed to control more of the solid minerals, particularly gold, lead, and zinc, and copper. Also, the RMAFC notes that states that generate decent levels of internally generated revenue, like Lagos, Kano, Rivers, and the Federal Capital Territory, have relatively higher levels of economic activities. Thus, policies by those state governments to foster favorable business environments should be implemented to attract businesses and industries. That is the RMAFC perspective on how states can begin to address the challenge of revenue, which of course is a huge concern in this period. And let's take a look at the gross monthly payouts by the Federal Account Allocation Committee to the 3 tiers of government and eligible agencies. It amounted to 676 billion naira, that's about $1.75 billion in August from July revenue. This was an increase of about 25 billion naira on the previous month. The communique issued at the end of its virtual meeting last week noted a healthy increase in the take from oil and gas royalties, particularly the petroleum profit tax and the value-added tax. At the same time, receipts from companies' income tax and import and excise duty declined from the previous month. The total consisted of 544 billion naira by way of gross statutory distribution, 132 billion naira from the VAT pool. The payout has held up better than expected this year when we consider the slowdown due to the COVID-19 virus and the weakness in crude price. Notably, in March and April, mineral receipts from crude oil particularly generally provided at least 2/3 of statutory distribution. The lags in oil tax payments may explain the apparent anomaly. Now, state governments received a total of 234 billion naira, including 43 billion naira for the oil producers. That benefits from the 13% derivation formula. Payments at these levels are well short of their requirements. In 2018, they spent in aggregate an average of 371 billion naira per month. That's 271 billion naira on recurrent and 100 billion naira on capital items. A minority of states led by Lagos generated substantial internal revenue for themselves. For the majority, the prospects are bleak. They are supposed to honor the latest rise in the minimum wage. Unemployment currently is rising, like I stated earlier, and the federal government of Nigeria has restricted their access to borrowing. Their formidable challenge in this environment is to improve their collaboration with the private sector, overhaul their efforts at tax collection, and coordinate with their respective local governments using technology. On a positive note, the monthly collection in the value-added tax pool has increased from 94 billion naira in April to 132 billion naira in June, for which the rise in the standard rate to 7.5% from February has seen the end to lockdown, which is gradually easing, and there's expectation that there will be deeper coverage that will occur where it's expected. And so that again is another perspective on the fact that we received a good report in terms of increase in the FAAC for August, and that reflects over 25 billion naira increase from the previous month of July. But again, states cannot continue to depend on FAAC, they have to be innovative. Let's go on, take a review again for last year. What was the total internally generated revenue for 2019, and what were the activities that happened around that? According to National Bureau of Statistics, it published its internally generated revenue at state level for the fourth quarter of full year 2019. It showed that 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, in terms of their internally generated revenue, hit 1.33 trillion naira in 2019 compared to 1.17 trillion naira recorded in 2018. This indicated a positive growth of 20.92% year-on-year. Similarly, the fourth quarter of 2019 states and Federal Capital Territory IGR figure hit 346.20 billion naira compared to 294.11 billion naira recorded in third quarter 2019. This again indicated a positive growth of 17.71% quarter-on-quarter. Lagos State had the highest internally generated revenue, not surprising, with 298.73 billion naira recorded, closely followed by Rivers State with 140.40 billion naira. Taraba State recorded the least internally generated revenue for the year 2019. Now, from the analysis here, the top 10 states that had the highest internally generated revenue, they include Lagos State in Southwest, 398.7 billion naira. Lagos is Nigeria's economic capital, and not surprising that it has a huge IGR. It's followed by Rivers State in the South-South region. Rivers State is arguably the oil and gas capital of Nigeria. Rivers State had 140.3 billion naira as internally generated revenue. And then the Federal Capital Territory, which is Nigeria's administrative capital of the country, seat of power where the president, the National Assembly, and of course the judiciary at the federal level reside. And it had about 74 billion naira in terms of internally generated revenue. Ogun State in the Southwest had 70.9 billion naira to come number 4 in terms of the top states that had IGR in 2019. Delta State in the South-South had 64.6 billion naira to make the top 5 for IGR. Kaduna State had 44.9 billion naira. Kaduna State is a major, you can call it the economic capital of the northwest region of Nigeria. While Kano State came number 6. Kano State is the northwest economic hub. That's 40.5 billion naira to make itself number 7. Akwa Ibom State is another major economic hub in the South-South, a rising industrial hub in the South-South. It made number 8 position with 32.2 billion naira in terms of IGR totally generated for the year 2019. Enugu State, Southeast economic hub, made 31.06 billion naira to make number 9. Enugu is historically the capital of southeastern Nigeria. Kwara State is a north-central base, north-central state. Kwara State made 30.6 billion naira to make the top 10 states with high internally generated revenue. Now, we also had the top 10 states that made low internally generated revenue for 2019. The lowest was Taraba State, as earlier stated, 6.5 billion naira. Taraba State is in northeastern Nigeria. Gombe State is also in the northeast region, made 6.8 billion naira to be the second in terms of the states with lowest internally generated revenue. Kebbi State came third in that category Kebbi State is in northwestern Nigeria, 7.3 billion naira. Ebonyi State is 7.4 billion naira from the southeastern region of Nigeria. Borno State made 8.1 billion naira. Borno is northwest region, the northeast region, I meant to say, and the epicenter of what you can call the insurgency and crisis we see from Boko Haram and other militia groups. Yobe State, northeast, 8.4 billion naira generated for the whole of 2019, is also another part of the activities of insurgents in northeastern Nigeria. Katsina made 8.49 billion naira in Nigeria. Katsina is in northwestern region of Nigeria. Ekiti State made 8.5 billion naira total Nigeria for the year 2019. Ekiti State is in southwest Nigeria. Adamawa State in northeast Nigeria, 9.7 billion naira IGR generated. And of course, Nasarawa State, which is in north central region of Nigeria, also made 10.8 billion naira. So those are the distributions to show you the top 10 high and top 10 low. Of course, definitely at the end of this year, when we get the report for 2020, we will look out for definitely three things. First, we'll look again at if there has been improvement across the states and how they generated IGR, those that moved up and those that moved down. And second, we'll try to explore the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the whole economic challenge of this period, how it affected overall generated revenue for states. And thirdly, we'll look at the distribution in terms of regions. We'll bring that up for 2020. Let's look at the sectoral distribution of value-added tax for first quarter 2020. Just a reflection. We expect that of second quarter very soon from the analysis. The sectoral distribution of value-added tax, which is of course what states collect, reflected that the sum of 338.94 billion naira was generated as VAT in first quarter of 2020, as against 208.48 billion naira generated in fourth quarter 2019, and 293.04 billion naira generated in first quarter 2019, representing a 9.87% increase quarter on quarter and 15.66% increase year on year for the period. Professional services, like we earlier stated, generated the highest amount of VAT with 38.30 billion naira generated, and closely followed by other manufacturing generating 37.37 billion naira. Commercial and trading generated 17.19 billion naira, while mining generated the least, and closely followed by textile and garment industry and local government councils with 61 billion, 3 million naira, 206 billion, 5 million naira, and 219.4 million naira, respectively. So that shows that professional services companies across states should be given top priority, and other manufacturing, because those were the major revenue drivers. How we approach them, how states continue to engage them, is very important for the value-added tax. So from the analysis, 172.67 billion naira was generated as non-import VAT locally, while 93.67 billion naira was generated as non-import VAT for foreign. The balance of 72.59 billion naira as the Nigerian Customs import VAT. And take a look at the whole developments that we've seen today. There are some issues of interest for states. First is that states should embrace innovative ways of deepening internally generated revenue. Let's just take some insights from that. We've heard from the RMAFC that there's need to expand the tax net, and expanding that tax net is very important. Digitization of all the offices. We want to see all the inland revenue states offices in the country work at the pace as we see in the FIRS, where processes are digitized, and that will help to expand the tax net. We need to formalize the informal sector. A huge chunk of the sectors working across the state are in the informal level, so they have to bring more of them into the tax net, and they have to engage them appropriately to be able to capture them in the tax nets. Also, the need for fiscal restructuring, the second one, is very important during this period. RMAFC also said that the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, everybody is beginning to lend their voice to the need for a fiscal restructuring. And so at this point, even the President and the National Assembly cannot avoid this discussion. It has become very imperative. And in what areas are we looking at this fiscal restructuring? First, we need to revisit the fiscal revenue distribution in the country. Currently, it's 52% to the federal, 27% to states, 21% to local governments. Some economists have said local governments should have 40%, states should have 35%, federal government should have 25%. Whatever is the case, the federal government has come to that point where it has to take less than states and local governments. And also, the second part is to allow the states to begin to utilize their resources. So that means the oil and gas zone, Niger Delta, should have much more in terms of controlling their resources and even paying back to the federal government. So oil and gas operations, states in the Niger Delta should have more access to resources, increase the resource allocation. Resource control of 13% for me is still low. And then also, any legislation that seeks to encroach into their resource will not augur well at this point. Currently, there's a legislation around the Waterways Bill, which has to follow the interest of the nation. Also, at the north, we see that there's a huge potential in solid minerals. We need to ensure that the north is able to assess their solid minerals, utilize them, and also develop them to commercial value. And we've seen some initiatives, but we need to restructure in a way that states have more. For example, why would states build airports and still federal governments are the ones that have more control? Or why would they even wait for more approvals for areas like refinery licenses and even the power plants projects? So these are areas that we need to allow states to explore opportunities to deepen their economic activities. Because if we continue like this, states will continue to depend on federal accounts allocation, and that doesn't make any sense at this time. States need to explore more opportunities. So this is a big call to National Assembly, the leadership of the National Assembly, chaired by Senator Ahmed Lawan, to continue what they promised they would do. Review that constitution, look at the ways, particular economic areas of fiscal restructuring and distribution of resources across the Federation. The third is that states should leverage the digital economy and its opportunities. This is a big time to leverage on it. I mean, just 2 days ago, we got information, a young man like Eric Wan. Eric Wan, prior to the COVID pandemic, we wouldn't classify as a huge billionaire. But today, Eric Wan added over $4 billion to his worth, courtesy of the Zoom video conferencing platform. That's just one entrepreneur making a huge chunk through innovation. So imagine if states can leverage the digital economy and have companies operate in digital capacity, they would bring immense revenue and value to the economy. Look at states like California or Massachusetts, where you are seeing the hubs, Silicon Valley alone providing huge revenue to the states and the US. Today, US economy is supported and driven heavily by the tech companies, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, amongst others, and Twitter. So states must take seriously the digital economy and explore all enabling policies that will encourage digital investments, broadband, and technology in this period. And number 4, states should reduce drastically the size of their governments. It is not a time to have a huge government. Governors cannot afford to have so many aides that are doing almost the same role. 3 or 4 roles are what we call duplicity. We don't need that at this time. We need to cut the size of governments. Budgets allocated to particularly the governor, the deputy governor, state legislators should be drastically reduced to reflect the COVID-19 realities. We just heard now the increase in PMS price, the increase in electricity tariff is going to have impact on the citizens. So what is the government doing on their own part to show citizens that while we're carrying out a market economic reform, we also are adjusting on our end to show you that we feel your pain and the challenges you're going to go through. So it doesn't make any sense if you're carrying out huge market reforms and the government that is supposed to represent the interests of the citizens are not taking steps to reduce their expenditure and the size of their activities. So states, the ball is in the court of the governors to begin to align alongside the House of Assembly, the speakers and all principal officers. And then number 5, transparency, accountability, and integrity in governance across board. It's very important because at this time we can't afford to be buying things that are not necessary in this period. It's also a point for accountability. States can take this opportunity to engage citizens, to give a breakdown of how they've been spending resources, and that will earn the respect of citizens to know that, yes, the government are serious about their welfare and have their interests at heart. And number 6, states should cut down on unnecessary projects that are not viable. There are some projects that are not viable. I mean, from the onset to the end, you know that this project is not going to create economic value, it's not going to create jobs. It's all a way of siphoning state resources. So state governments should reflect on projects that they want to embark on. It must be of immense economic value. And note that in this period, we even have limited resources, so we can't afford to put in state citizens, taxpayers' money into things that are not viable. And lastly, states should work with the federal government and the local government areas to reduce the number of taxes across the country, particularly at the state level. Some report has it that we have over 200 taxes, and some of them are just rates and all that. These are the things that serve as an impediment to businesses to thrive. People have shops, people have businesses, and every day you see different authorities coming to log the shop, asking for different rates because there is no harmonization. So the Joint Tax Board, which has the states and the federal and local government, they have to come to that agreement to reduce the taxes in the country to at least 5. We know of the personal income tax, we know of the company income tax, we also know of the capital gains tax and the value-added tax. So we need to synchronize the number of taxes we have in the country. At least it should be more than 5, so that people know that these are the taxes and they can even make demands and there can be more accountability. If we get there, definitely, we should make progress as states and miss the challenge of revenue and miss the challenge of sustainability. Strategic steps taken by state governments can help to navigate during this challenging period. And that'll be all for this edition of the Economy and Politics Show. You can visit our website, www.proshenji.com, to watch our videos with our news reports and get some analysis on developments across states, subnationals, and economies. Join us by 10 a.m. as we discuss in our market review round the commodities market, job security, and the food program that has been earmarked by the federal government for the nation. It's an interesting conversation. You don't want to miss it. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching, and please send your comments and views to news@proshenji.com. We'd like to hear from you how you feel about this program. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.